Hello, everybody. Dave Viall here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. Well, I hate to break it to everyone out there, but there's really no new tea to talk about. There's no new gossip. So because of that, we're not going to have any content today. Hold on 1 second. What's that? The audience wants a third Nick Viall video, and they want me to do the Lord's work. You want me to do the Lord's work and provide that video? Okay, let's get into it. All right, so Reality Steve, bad boy, spoiler king, Reality Steve exposes the hypocrisy that Nick and Natalie had on their last episode of their podcast, Viall Files, in their response to Katie Thurston. Katie said she blocked Nick from her phone, and then Natalie, Nick's girlfriend, tried to expose her with certain text messages, and it sort of proved the point as to why Katie blocked Natalie in the first place. I can't go in further with the public right now as to Katie's justification for why she blocked Nick. So feel free to hypothesize. Maybe one day I'll get the approval to share that information. But let me just say, I believe it's 100% valid. Now, blocking somebody isn't some giant diss, it's like she did it for her own mental health, her own boundaries. So we'll get into this story. Follow me on Instagram at DNeils. How's that for a teaser? I almost just shared it with you guys, and I was like, you know what? Katie didn't tell me not to share it, but she didn't tell me to share it. But Katie's justification for why she blocked Nick, 100% valid, in my opinion. I'll do it. I will hint to the Patreon after recording this video. I will hint to them what that justification might be. All right, there I did. I said it. I can be bought $5. Okay, so let's get into this story. Oh, boy. And you'll agree with me. It's 100% justified. So we made this story. Did it backfire? Well, so far, the court of public opinion on Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, my YouTube channel, pretty much just about everyone at about 95%. Hey, Bachelor data, why don't you take a poll as to whose side people are on? People are basically saying they've sort of overextended themselves. In my opinion, Natalie, again, I don't know her personally, and I don't have any criticism of her as a human. She seems like a lovely person. With that said, she probably, in the position of moral superiority, saying what Katie is doing is wrong, spoke too soon because, of course, Nick's been around in the game for a long time. He's profited in commodified the tea that he has. So for Natalie to be saying Katie exposing tea is like get over it, obviously people are pulling receipts of Nick having done the same thing. So we will get into Reality Steve sharing that tea. Of course, we already shared Blake called Nick the biggest hypocrite in the world. Blake's got a beef with Nick. That's a whole separate issue here. There is beef to go around. I don't have any beef with Nick. Like I've said before, I think he's very smart business-wise. I think his show provides a ton of dirt, and I mean that positively, dirt from the show. Not the quality's pretty good. Every once in a while his mic's a little tinny. They can work on the production quality. I'm just kidding. But it's all good. It's all good. So, but what's funny, and I'm going to share this with you. Sorry, this post has been removed by the moderators. I'm going to share this clip with you guys in a minute. This clip is Nick basically calling out Blake and then Nick doing the same thing. So that's just all it is. Like we're all in the same game. So I'm going to play that. And no, people are on both sides of the issue. So Oliver, my friend over here, says, I'm dying laughing. Dave and Katie Thurston deserve each other. Dave is coming across as a bully, in my opinion. He's relishing in the hate he gets to deal out to Nick. I have also seen him liking hateful comments about Nick and Natalie, yet he ends his videos with, be kind. Dave, don't you preach to not send hate? You're hypocritical, just like all these Bachelor people. LMAO, this is hilarious. My response was like, STF, dude. STFU. Now, Oliver, I actually have a love-hate relationship with Oliver. I've wanted to block him like 15 different times. I tell him that, but I don't mind his criticism. It's good to have criticism out there. I get 10,000 comments a day. I'll like a couple in all directions. I really will. If I like a comment, it is not an endorsement of my feelings. So on one side, people think I'm dancing on the old grave of Nick Viall, and then on the other side, right here, Someone says, I appreciate that you really push back on the echo chamber mentality, no matter if you're biased or not. The echo chamber being that there were 5 people on their podcast all having one point of view, and I'm just here saying, hey, here's the other point of view. Here's the defense of Katie. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at. If you haven't watched my other 2 videos, go back. This is level 3, baby. This is Econ 301. You need to go to 101 and 201. So anyway, Blake called it out. He also points out the obvious hypocrisy of Nick, and Nick can dish what he can't take. Here's the deal. Nick actually didn't come across that bad in his podcast. It was Natalie who was sort of goading him on to share the messages. And I will say this. I mean, me personally, with my relationship, I would never want to put Tasha in a position that would get her this kind of backlash. Like Natalie, she doesn't need to be a part of this. This is a Nick and Katie feud that Natalie doesn't need to be a part of, but she wanted to defend her man. And we can respect that. We can respect that Natalie wanted to defend her man. It's just that Nick understands he's been in this game for years now, so he's said things and done things very similar to what Katie is being accused of saying and doing. So now Reality Steve exposes the hypocrisy. So let's get into it. Got beef. I'm going to share what Reality Steve had to say, but just to go back, he was on the Viall Files podcast, July 14th, 2020, and here's the beginning of what Reality Steve had to say. Let's go back to 145. Hold on, 145. Here was Nick's thoughts about his relationship with Reality Steve. Now, take the emotion out of it. Whether you like Reality Steve or not, or like Nick or not, Reality Steve's just going to provide the receipts that are basically calling out Natalie and Nick.
We'll get into that right now, but I've had a complicated relationship with Reality Steve over the years, and I've had my frustrations with him. And so for me, the things I wanted to talk to him about were about those frustrations and just have an honest conversation. And for me, the big picture frustration with Reality Steve has always been, for someone who's been so critical of the franchise and the producers and some of the cast people on there, it always felt like a double standard and some hypocrisy, in the sense that for Steve to openly criticize, and you'll hear it on this podcast, about the show should hold itself more accountable for how they portray individuals on the show, as he claims inaccurately, and I don't doubt that some...
Okay, so let's go to the 33:30 mark. You can go listen to the full thing. I fully support content creators being promoted on my channel. Nick, one of them. So feel free to give small YouTuber... I'm kidding. Nick Viall, he's got a bigger following than I do on my one account. Collectively, I'm double to him. But the point is, give him a listen if you want to listen to this full conversation.
And snark, if you're gonna criticize, if you're gonna make fun of someone like you have of me in the past on your, then who are you, the first, if you're pointing fingers, there's 3 pointing back at you. I guess that's kind of my point, where it's just fine, you want to criticize the show?
Pointing all my fingers.
Then what about all, and I'm I tweet snarky things, right? But
So what Nick's saying is, if you're going to criticize my show, you got to be able to take it when we criticize you. So obviously Reality Steve has had to deal with sort of overcoming past ways he's blogged and talked about the show and all the other issues. And so that's the deal. We all, the point is that we've all come from places we're not proud of. We all have said words that no longer should be said. If you come from New England, you've said every R word, F word. These are words that people said. And if you're going to pretend like you didn't say them, then you didn't go to high school where I'm from, okay? I'm okay admitting that. I'm okay admitting I had no idea what the Confederate flag stood for. None of these things. We come from ignorance. We come from there. That's not where we are today. So all that said, just to say, let's just step down from the moral superior lifeguard stand, and we'll all be fine. Okay, good. So let's move on. So BachelorNation.scoop put together some receipts. Have a listen.
Tea do you want spilled? And then that's when people were just like, Michael, Andrew.
I have such an issue with
the
this.
The music in the background is so funny.
I love all of these guys. I've met all of them. They're all great human beings. And I'm just so confused as to why she continues to bring these guys into her life. Why?
Now, in this thread here, it's underlined that Reality Steve mentions that Nick charged his listeners on his Patreon for interviews he did with his women years after his season aired. 3.5 years after his season aired. So everything Natalie's upset about with Katie, Nick's already done. Except Nick's actually monetized it. Now, I'm in full support of people monetizing their patreon.com/Dave Neal. I'm full support of it. If you want to pay your money to support your content creators, albeit go for it. Now, if Nick was making a fortune off of tea that he was receiving from the contestants from his show and not sharing any of the profits with them, that's a whole separate issue. I'm not even hypothesizing that's the case. I'm not sure what their deal was they worked out. Whenever there's a private Patreon and an interview happens, it's always kind of like, do we split the profits? What do we do? Okie dokie. So I'm all support of making your money. What Nick did is not wrong. What Katie did is not wrong. But unfortunately, Natalie's take on it doesn't bring into fact that Nick's already done
Why
this.
are we still bringing them up? Like, they have moved on. They have tried to forget, and you just get bored and decide.
Now, the argument on behalf of Nick and Natalie here would be that Nick maybe didn't slam his contestants on his Patreon, whereas Katie's slamming her guys. But I'd argue that the tea Katie is sharing is mild. It's lukewarm. It's not slamming or exposing any of the guys.
Rope everyone back in.
And the Thomas one will always rub me the wrong way. Like,
Thomas got the short end of the stick.
well, she goes, I've always said this, that like, you don't like, kind of like a don't judge a book by its cover. And it's like, wait, you always said this? Was this after you sent Thomas home and gave him one of the cruelest goodbyes in arguably the history of the season?
And as we've said, she obviously was going off of misinformation that all of the men tagged up and said Thomas was a bad guy.
We're misinformed and we don't know everything. And instead of recognizing that maybe she was a little hard on Thomas, she doubles down and warns essentially the women of the world, specifically the women going to paradise, to watch out for.
And then she has since apologized and taken back that statement. All right, so that's not important. Just go through here. Someone commented, they have such a hard-on for Katie. I love that term, hard-on. I wonder why. Does anyone have a hard-on for me? Leave a comment, ladies. Does anybody have a lady boner for Dave? Don't leave a comment. Or do. Okay, whatever. It's a metaphorical lady boner. By the way, someone in the Reddit thread had mentioned working with Dave, which is what I call my Patreon, work with Dave. And they left a comment in the Reddit thread, said, I love that I get to work with Dave every day. We love Dave. And then someone underneath that said, something like, isn't it weird that like Dave's lady is commenting on here? And I was like, she's not my lady. These are people that I do live streams with. So just because they say they're working with me doesn't mean they're sitting on the couch next to me. We're all online. Okay, I just wanted to say that. I want to get accused of cheating because of my Patreon here. Lady boners. Okay. That should be I should get a lady boners shirt with my face on it. Lady boners. Woo! Okay.
Oh my God.
Moving along, folks. All right. So anyway, let's play this.
As soon as I
Oh boy.
I got to talk to him. He gives me Josh Murray vibes. I don't know if you.
So this was Nick saying his own trash about Thomas.
A sweaty guy?
Yeah. On Andy's season. I think Thomas.
No.
I don't
Him
like
on Bachelor in Paradise. I can't.
predictions. I mean, we'll get into predictions. I'll tell you. I don't think Thomas is going
I like Nick's jeans. I just don't know if I could pull off the ripped knee look. I don't know if my knees are to be exposed.
to win.
No.
I think Thomas would have won.
And I will say this, Nick is goal body. He's in his 40s. He is goal body. I don't know what his workout routine is, but I look at Olive Garden breadsticks and I spiral out of control. He's got to give him credit.
A lot of other seasons, if the Bachelorette was different, he, in my very brief
See, I compliment him.
time with he is always on, and everything that comes out of his mouth is rehearsed and thought.
Okay, so Nick says Thomas is always on. Everything that comes out of his mouth is rehearsed. My thought with Thomas, without ever having met him, is even though we see a guy who's 6'6" and beautiful and good looking, dark tan guy, like he's got all these great features, he's probably just as insecure as the rest of us. So maybe he's rehearsed because he's nervous.
It was my opinion.
We just never give these people the benefit of the doubt. But he's tall and strong. He's tall and strong. How could he? It's like, well, look at his inner child. Maybe he's just an insecure 5-year-old like the rest of us.
I get villain vibes from him, but also like for example, like Josh Murray won Andy's season but also was the villain of Paradise. Andy loved him. There was a level of protection as a winner you get, and quite frankly, like he did.
Now here's
All right, and whereas Nick was the villain on
Anyone
Katie's
meant-
season and then ended up winning Paradise, if you will. So
And
it
now
looks
kind
like
of-
that's it. All right, that's it that we have. Not for the video. We got a lot on this video here. I know we're already 15 minutes in. So Reality Steve posted this yesterday. Bingo, Blake clown show. After Blake's response calling Nick an absolute hypocrite, because Nick and Natalie read Katie's text message, and then everyone was reminded that Nick made fun or slammed Blake for reading text messages. Okay, so I'm going to play, and we'll get into that in a second with this video. Let me delete these other ones. We're already done with that. I need to clear my tabs here. We'll play this video. You know what? All right, I'll play this video first, and then I'll play Reality Steve.
And this whole, like, as far as the text messages go, this is who.
This is Nick's response to Blake. Now, is this substantial with the Katie content? Slightly, because he's criticizing Blake and then doing something similar.
Blake is, and that's fine. That doesn't make him a bad person.
Agreed.
It makes him a fuckboy. It
He's not a bad person.
makes him potentially a shitty guy.
He's not a bad person. He's a shitty guy. What do you mean? No, this food's not bad. It's just shitty.
For being willing to throw other people under the bus to protect an image that isn't accurate about himself.
Just
Not like he didn't realize this whole idea. I didn't think this would affect her the way it did.
knew.
He knew. He admitted to it. There's
So Blake, they're talking about Kaylin. Blake's text message he released did affect Kaylin. It was a necessary evil to Blake because he was vindicating himself. I'm vindicated!
texts out there of him saying this.
yeah.
Thankfully, those people aren't going down the same path Blake did and releasing them, but like it was premeditated.
By the way, that's Rochelle on the left, right? She's a friend of mine. She's a stand-up comedian. She used to be his producer.
He knew it. It makes it all that much more
She's very
nasty.
sweet. Rochelle has the show, The Bachelor musical that she created. I think it was playing in Chicago.
He
Babe, I think you should read the text.
Read the
I think she's platforming a lie, and I think we need to show the truth.
Well,
Oh, how funny. How funny. I never watched the end of this. They zip through it with Curb Your Enthusiasm. Oh, funny. Oh, this is funny. We're having fun, guys. This is fun. Hey, this is fair. This is it. This is why the internet exists, right? All right. Without further ado, I'm just going to play what Reality Steve had to say. Does Reality Steve take great pleasure? I mean, first of all, I can't speak for Reality Steve. Does he? But I will. Does he? Lady boners. I got a Reality Steve boner. Does he? Metaphorically, does he take great pleasure calling out this hypocrisy? Maybe it does feel good to be like, see, I might not be a perfect human, but neither are you. You know, and I think we all understand nobody's perfect. Nick Viall does have Blake Moynes on the podcast, so obviously Katie will come up. You have to think he's going to address this. I am not taking, by the way, any stances of moral superiority over Nick. I like the brand he has built. I mentioned that he bought a home off of his voice, off of being on the show, doing commentary. He bought a home in Southern California. Susan Taylor, this snarky commenter. Shout out, Susan. How are you? Susan Taylor goes, anybody should be buying a home by now. Listen here, Susan. Come to Los Angeles and try to buy a flippin' home, okay? My generation has gotten royally stiffed on buying a home. I could save $50,000 a month and I can't catch up to the rising prices. And we need to elect a leader that's going to go in there and regulate offshore drilling. I don't know. Speaking of offshore drilling, wouldn't that be a great name for a fantasy suite? How are we doing tonight? We're doing some offshore drilling. Okay, folks, lady boners, get into it. Here's what Reality Steve had to say.
Just something Nick preaches all the time. So, Natalie said, and I'm reading this word for word because I listened and I wrote it down. Natalie said this on the podcast.
We're crushing
Quote,
it.
I have such an issue with this. I'm just so confused as to why she continues to bring these guys into her life. She's talking about Katie. Why are we still bringing them up? They have moved on. They have tried to forget about that. And you just get bored and decide you want to rope everyone back in. And I think that's really weird.
All right, I'm going to keep on playing this, but I do want to shout out that he's doing a daily roundup. So this is a 20-minute daily roundup that he's doing. I actually really like the way Reality Steve talks. Now listen, a lot of people don't like the way I talk, and a lot of people do, but I like his brain's thought process for how this all goes down. So he does these daily roundups now. If you want to listen or read, if you're like our good boy Bruce over here who's in a meeting and can't actually listen to what we're saying, he's got the blog version too. You can read it.
I have a really big issue with that. That's what Natalie said about Katie. That seems to be her issue, is that she didn't appreciate the fact that Katie is still talking about her men when she did a TikTok live this past weekend. But here's the thing. Again, I don't know if Natalie watched the TikTok live or, she probably didn't watch it live as it was happening, but clearly the things that Katie said in that TikTok live were relayed back to Natalie. I don't know if she saw the screenshots or not. I think she did. And I guess at that point, Natalie and I just have a clear, we're on opposite ends in the spectrum when it comes to what Katie said on those TikTok lives. I didn't think it was that bad at all. I don't think what she said about Andrew was a big deal. I don't think what she said about Michael was a big deal. It's not like she was calling guys out. She was being a bitch. She was, slandering her guys. It was just, hey, here's some things from my season. She was literally people were asking for tea, and then they would just throw out a name, and she gave a little story, a little insight. And I don't know how Natalie doesn't understand at this point. Like, the reason leads and or contestants talk about behind-the-scenes stuff, juicy tidbits from the show, it's because that's what their fans want to hear. Your boyfriend does it all the time.
Spot of tea?
This is good.
Yes, of course. I would love some tea.
This is good tea. I'm sorry.
Like,
isn't it ironic that the tea is them talking about the tea? We've gone down the wormhole here. I am on the back end of the human centipede, but the food still tastes good.
Majorly part of your boyfriend's job to do this. Like, and I don't fault him, and I don't fault Katie, and I don't fault anybody. That's how these people, a lot of them are making a living now. Is, what does Nick do on his podcast? He does a recap of the show, an episode that he gets in advance from production.
I'm so jealous.
So it's ready to go 2 seconds after the show ends on Monday
night. We don't get it in advance.
He recaps it, and he usually has a guest that he interviews. Natalie, you're being very hypocritical.
How it works here when it comes to when you're an approved commentator, like Nick is commentator, and like Entertainment Tonight, all these like. As soon as the episode airs, the Ringer has their recap ready. It's, the rest of us, I'm watching a bootleg version of the Florida local news. I think there's a hurricane in Santa Monica because I'm watching, what Tampa Bay, their bootleg version of the East Coast show, just so I can get a couple hours advance notice here. But they get the show on like a Friday or a Saturday to watch it on Monday. So they will give a drop link, an online version, a streamer of the show to their guests so they can watch it in advance. They do this for all the episodes. And just in case you didn't know that's how it worked, which is totally fine. It's just plebeians, us Roman commoners, Reality Steve and myself, we got to watch it like everybody, every other Dick and Harry.
Of the show, an episode that he gets in advance from production, so it's ready to go 2 seconds after the show ends on Monday night. He recaps it, and he usually has a guest that he interviews. Natalie, you're being very hypocritical when you say, tell Katie to stop talking about her guys. And you say, well, Nick's not talking about his girls, his season. He's talking about the season currently at hand. He's talking about the show. Okay, well, then let me remind you of something, Natalie, that maybe you're not aware of, maybe you are. I don't know.
Oh, boy.
But back in 2020, Nick charged his listeners on a Patreon podcast to listen to him interview 8 or 9 of his women that he had dumped on his season 3 years earlier. Let that sink in. Katie didn't even rip her guys. Didn't even spill any dirt about them. She just answered some questions about her guys, and I'm sure they didn't even give a shit. Your boyfriend made a whole production out of interviewing the women from his season,
which is fine.
That he dumped in January actually dumped them in 2016. It didn't air until January or March of 2017, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say these women he dumped were in February and March of 2017, And then he interviews them in August of 2020. Not only did he interview them, he charged people to listen to it. And he labeled his different tiers of subscription as basic tea seekers and premium tea seekers, $4.99 and $5.99.
Get your tea bag merchandise.
So, I mean, sure.
He could have charged more.
Natalie is allowed to have that opinion, like, Katie, stop talking about your guys. But when your boyfriend did the same exact thing on a much higher level and charged people to listen to him talk to the women from his season, it's all the same thing. You're talking about it, and why do you think Nick did that? Why do you think your boyfriend did that, Natalie? For engagement. He knows people are interested in that. It was smart of him to do.
So then Reality Steve says it was smart of him to do that. And I think anyone would do. It's like, look, you've been on the show. The show's already kind of like stolen your soul. You know, you might as well just make some money off of it. Absolutely. Look, you can go check the rest of Reality Steve out at realitysteve.com, but he's got some great points there. You know, again, Reality Steve has beef with Nick and vice versa, so I'm sure this is going to hit hard. But taking the beef out, he's just sharing the hypocrisy. That's all he's doing. If I do something that is a hypocrisy, I will have to own it when I am exposed for that. That is just how it goes. And I you know what I actually like about this? Nobody's trying to cancel Nick. No one's trying to come after his advertisers. This is good. I like this. I think this is fair. This is a fair town hall. Let me know what you guys think. We'll have more content coming your way. This may be the last of the videos I'm making about this. Probably not. All right, folks. We'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody. It's a 10 out of 10 video, by the way, guys. That's a 10 out of 10. I'm going to put this in the best of 2022 playlist.